Hi and welcome to another video from me, Mark Carp, of the Northwest Carp and Anglers Diary Fishing blog. Today we're going to talk about avoiding getting bit by mozzies, those horrible little blighters. Once you get bit by them, they just itch for days and days afterwards, and it's high summer, so they're at their worst. So coming up, I've got 3 tips on how to avoid getting bit by the dreaded mozzie, and actually I think I'll chuck in a bonus tip at the end as well. But let's start with those 3 tips first. Okay, coming up, tip number 1. Okay, so tip number 1 is to use jungle formula. This stuff, it's a very well known insect repellent, and the active ingredient in it is called DEET. Oh, I'm away. Well, there's a bit of a surprise right in the middle of filming a video. I'm going to get him waiting to see what he's like. Right, where was I before I was rudely interrupted by a fish? Nice comment, £14, 2 ounces. Tip number 1, jungle formula. A very well known insect repellent, and the active ingredient in it is DEET. D-E-E-T. There are 2 good ingredients for repelling mozzies. One is DEET, which you get in the jungle formula, and the other is called citronella. Okay, so jungle formula is the first one. Apply it liberally over any exposed areas so you don't get bit, and it works really well, but it doesn't work all the time. So let's take a look at tip number 2 and what you can do if the jungle formula doesn't work. Let's go for tip number 2. Okay, so tip number 2 is to use Avon Skin So Soft. This stuff, it's really good. It's a dry oil body spray that you get from an Avon rep. You can also get it on Amazon and eBay, as you can with the jungle formula as well. Now, the active ingredients in this is citronella, so it's opposite from DEET. There's DEET and citronella are the 2 ingredients that mozzies hate the most, and what you generally find is if the jungle formula doesn't work, then the Avon Skin So Soft will, and it's very good. This, I know Avon say, oh, we don't say that this is mozzie repellent or anything like that, but it actually really does work really well. Okay, so tip number 2, Avon Skin So Soft, and use it in conjunction with the jungle formula. So if one doesn't work and you still get bit, apply the other, and usually one will stop them. Okay, that's tip number 2. Coming up next, tip number 3. Okay, so tip number 3 is to mesh up. Get yourself a mesh net like this. This one is from what the old famous army stores. I've had this for absolutely donkey's years, and it's saved me so many times. And it's a head mesh. So if you've got a hat on, I'm going to put my baseball hat on now, but if you've got a hat with a rim, because it hangs down over you, then it works better. And what you do is you slip it over your head like so, and over your coat. Looks a bit daft, but I tell you what, it doesn't half keep them off because they can't get through the mesh. And this has saved me so many times before when I've been out on the bank, especially on a Saturday afternoon when I'm doing me fishing. You know, I cover myself up and I put this over me if they're really bad, and it actually stops them getting at me. And that's tip number 3, cover up and get yourself a mesh net. They're quite cheap. You find them on eBay or in an army surplus store or something like that, and worn with a hat, especially one with a rim, you know, you can keep them off you, and that works really well. Actually, it's probably my favourite of the 3. because if you're handling bait and you're putting, you're applying jungle formula or Skin So Soft, you've got to wash your hands before you can handle your bait. Okay, so sometimes you'd leave your hands free, cover your arms and stuff like that, then wash your hands so at least you can handle your bait. If you use one of these and just cover up, then you don't need to do that. It's so light, doesn't weigh anything, fits in my rucksack and stays there all summer, and when I need it, it's there. Okay, so that's tip number 3. Now I did promise you a tip number 4, a bonus tip, and that's coming next. Okay, so it's time for that bonus tip, and I found out about this by accident really. I joined the water 5 years ago that required me to walk across a grassy field that hadn't been mowed and had no paths, and every time I went over it I found I was getting absolutely soaked wearing my normal trainers, because I've always worn trainers for fishing. So I bought myself a pair of wellies, neoprene wellies, and I wear them all the time now. I'll take one off and show it to you. It's a boot. Okay, solid at the bottom, moulded boot and neoprene at the top, and they are absolutely brilliant. But because I've got a boot on and they're halfway up my calves, the mozzies can't get at me anymore. And since I started wearing them, the bonus is it keeps my feet dry, but the second bonus is I never get bitten by mozzies on the ankles again. And it didn't matter how much you put jungle formula or Skin So Soft on my socks, because it's sprayed all over my socks to try and not get bit down there, they always seem to find a way through. So wearing wellies has stopped any bites on my ankles and my feet. So that's bonus tip. Get yourself a decent pair of wellies. Okay, so coming up, there's a playlist there, particle playlist, that's chickpeas. My particle playlist is building slowly, it's really good. Take a look at that. And here, if you do any other fishing besides carp, if you might want to try jig fishing or lure fishing, jig fishing for beginners is there. Thanks for watching and take care of yourself. Tight lines.